It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on a drive right now, coming back from the Steelers and Buccaneers joint practice. Alan, how are we doing?
Doing all right. This is the worst of all Pittsburgh driving assignments. The fight your way through one set of rush hour traffics to go sit in another. So I may set a new record for the least distance traveled during a 30-minute afternoon drive podcast. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Anytime that I can see one of Pittsburgh's bridges in the window, I know that it's probably not going to be a great time for that person. So, yeah, we're going to dive into today's joint practice. Everything. By the way, prior to, I don't know, maybe an hour or two before the practice starting, when it was put out, by people that cover the team, that they can't tweet about it, I had no clue that that was going to be a thing. I thought it was just going to be like business as usual and we could stay up to date with a play-by-play on what was going on. So I'm not going to lie, I was a bit disappointed today.
Yeah, me too. And as far as I know, this was the only joint practice in the NFL this year that was covered under those rules. And by the way, it seemed like at least one of the Tampa outlets just didn't follow them anyway. So they kind of just tweeted everything. Disaster. And cool. Very frustrating from a media perspective.
The Saints were live streaming theirs on their YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah. I understand not doing that, but I don't really understand what the harm is. And Pat Freiermuth did confirm that the offense won 7 shots, 6-1. So I can tell you that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened when the defense is 7 shots because I was on the other side of the field, so I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to.
Okay. All right. Well, based off what you can tell us and what we're going to go through here, I guess we could dive into some of that. First thing that stood out to me that I want to talk about before anything else, you tweeted out just a little bit before we actually started recording, and I quoted this. We've been talking about this. Let's see how things progress in terms of when somebody else like a Jalen Ramsey kicks outside, or if Jalen Ramsey's not on the field, who's that second guy in the slot? And it was Brandin Echols today. And I started to wonder, man, we're talking about Beanie coming off the preseason game that he did. There's been a couple times now in practice where this has happened, where Echols has kicked inside to be that guy, maybe higher in the pecking order. Do you think that's fair use of those words, higher on the pecking order at this point, or just something they're experimenting with to see about Echols' versatility?
No, I think Echols has been the better player of those two throughout most of training camp. So there's that. I also think, one of the things the Steelers have going on in the secondary, and I talked to Brandon about this, is that, we talked about, Jalen Ramsey talked on the pivot about, I'm that number one guy. I'm going to go get Jamar Chase or whatever. But, they don't have to do that. They are presenting options where just because a guy is lined up somewhere does not mean he is covering the guy you think he is. What Ramsey and Slay and Porter are all perfectly capable of covering Jamar Chase. So you may the offense can assume something that turns out to be incorrect because of the versatility of the players involved, especially Slay and Ramsey, who can both play inside and outside, are both really good man cover guys, and really are good against sort of all body types of receivers. Porter, I think, has a little bit more specific matchup you'd be trying to get him to go against. But the Steelers want teams to assume that Jalen Ramsey is going to go get their number one receiver, and then maybe he's not. Maybe Jalen Ramsey's on the slot because of the look you saw here or you gave here, and then instead of throwing away from 5, you're throwing to him. You can't pick on a guy if you don't know where he is, right? And so I just think that is a really valuable thing about having the 3 corners they have. But if one of them is missing and you put Beanie Bishop out there with the other 2, that kind of all goes away. Beanie's going to go in the slot. Where he's he can only play against certain matchups. And it's just not to say that it isn't also a big talent drop off from those guys to Brandin Echols, because it is. But I just think in terms of the entirety of of his ability, where like what you have to respect him to be able to do is significantly greater than Beanie Bishop. And so if your third corner is Echols, I think it still allows you to do all the same things you were doing sort of schematically with your disguises and with moving guys around that you were doing with Porter, Slay, and Ramsey. Now it's just Echols in two of those three.
So I don't want to like say this too strongly or anything like that. I'm just wondering if you are Beanie Bishop or somebody that is a supporter of Beanie Bishop, would you be kind of biting your nails? Do you think his roster spot looks a little bit murkier now than maybe it did prior to Saturday's preseason game?
No, because Echols was on the team anyway, and
Sure.
I would still have Beanie ahead of Corey Trice right now.
Okay.
So not in that sense, but maybe in terms of playing time, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not sure where the playing time comes, and potentially because Echols also is a really good special teamer, potentially even a helmet. Like, just Pierre's going to have a helmet, and Echols is going to have a helmet. So, like, there's a possibility that Beanie could be on the team, but not dressing if everybody's healthy.
So, yeah, just kind of updating where you thought like the 53 roster math was, then a question that I'll pose kind of going along with that. It's not related, but it will be, and you'll see where I'm going with this. The wide receivers, if you were at say six, because of like Scotty Miller and making an outside addition like that, would them being at 6 change your mind on Beanie Bishop, or were you still at 6 already before and still think Beanie Bishop, or does like he need 5 wide receivers to be the case in order for them to keep that extra defensive back?
I had 6, but there'll be 10 DBs no matter what. And there's going to be 4 safeties. Clark, Thornhill, Elliott, Killebrew. Yep. That to me is that business is done. So there's 6 cornerbacks. And you know Slay, Porter, Ramsey, Echols are on the team. 4. So there's basically 2 spots for Pierre, Beanie, and Trice.
Okay. Yeah. That all makes sense to me. All right, wanted to start there. That's obviously something that
and
we're
Trice
monitoring.
Might start the season on the injured reserve. Like that may be a non-issue. You may end up with all 7 of them. Again, not practicing today. So, I mean, I would.
Yeah, in between Trice and
one's coming up. Like, it's not like we're far away here.
Sure. And between Trice and Kent, those are unfortunately those things that we talk about where it's like, man, these sometimes just like figure themselves out, unfortunately, with that way as opposed to play on the field.
I could see them just putting Kent on season ending just to kind of stash him for a year. I could see that happening.
So we could talk about that, obviously, with Brandin Echols, moving around again, moving inside. What else from today, just general thoughts, are we able to discuss on here that you can put out there?
Yeah, I mean, I thought in general the offense moved the ball pretty well. Didn't have the greatest 2-minute drill at the end. A couple drops, which will definitely kill you. But I thought in general the offense looked better than the Tampa Bay defense, especially throwing the ball. Tampa Bay's defense is just not very good. Like, I mean, they're good up the middle. You got David, you got Cansey, you got Vita Vea. Like, those 3 guys, like they're tough. Yeah. They're tough out running up the middle. But everywhere else, their edges aren't very good. Their secondary is very weak. Like, I thought the Steelers wide receivers and tight ends in like one-on-one drills, not only at the top but like down the line, were better. So, I mean, I don't think that's a very good defense. Offensively, they have some interesting wide receivers. I kind of forgot how many interesting wide receivers they have, where you start with, obviously, Mike Evans, and then not practicing, but Godwin still working his way back from that. Was it a knee injury last year, I think? I want to say it was knee. I can't remember. But, like, just interesting, right? McMillan, like Buka, Taz Johnson, Palmer, like they all got something there. Like that's not like a collection of scrubs. So I think it was a good test for the secondary. Baker Mayfield is like, nobody's top 5 quarterback, but he's competent enough to get the ball where it needs to go when it is supposed to go there. And so I think it was a really good test for the defense. Again, I mostly watched the offense. I did watch the 2-minute. That's really kind of all I saw of the Steelers defense.
It was his ankle, by the way. Chris Godwin, he dislocated it. Like, it was like fully turned around.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But honestly, I had a different thought pop in my mind. They're probably going to see what Godwin looks like and everything like that. But, we mentioned, and I heard back from the GM of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers about the Trey Palmer thing before, but you saying that, I started to think about, okay, the Steelers at this joint practice, they're getting a pretty good look at those bottom of the roster guys that might not all be able to make that Buccaneers roster, and wondering if maybe that's a team to keep an eye on now that the Steelers have gotten a better look at those guys.
Maybe, but without Godwin, and he's not going to be ready for the start of the season, I think that's a hard sell now. Maybe at the deadline. I don't know. It does look like a deep room. I just, part of it is they're all so young. A veteran, like what they really need to make a trade is they would need to have had some veteran that, like, McMillan and Palmer and Tez Johnson all passed on the depth chart. You know what I mean? That then they could just get rid of. But they don't really have that guy. That's why
but Sterling Shepard's there again. I don't know how much interest you have in a guy like him.
Sure, I guess. That's why, I think New England is interesting, because I think they brought in some guys at the top, and then I think some of their younger guys, Polk's injured, so that hurts. But, some of their younger guys, I think, can play better than Booty, Bourne, Douglas even maybe. Or it's, to the point that, one of those guys could be available if they get passed by the younger receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. My mind keeps going to Kendrick Bourne, to be honest with you. And somebody put out this route efficiency thing and just, who the best separators are by route. Kendrick Bourne, 5th in terms of his efficiency on in routes and digs. I don't know. Maybe there's something there that we can work with within this offense. And also just a guy that plays the Z. So just from a fit perspective,
I heard Curtis Samuel doesn't seem like he has much of a role in Buffalo. That one intrigues me a lot.
Yeah. I actually, before he signed,
he's kind of their only depth. Oh my God. Yeah. I 100% agree. He's kind of their only depth. So I don't know if they would want to trade him, but maybe if he doesn't have any role, he would sort of agitate for a trade. You know what I mean? That would be how that would happen, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, because they have a lot of guys that are the same type of receiver. They're another team that's kind of missing that outside dude, which is why I wondered when and if he got cleared, if they'd be interested in a Dave Davis reunion. And then, hey, if that pushes him even further down the pecking order, then yeah, absolutely 100%. So, but he's also dealing with a hamstring right now. Khalil Shakir is dealing with an ankle. There's injuries everywhere to wide receiver rooms that is impacting the Steelers, even though it's not their own that are, Calvin's dealing with something right now too, but
right. Calvin run a little bit today, so that's good.
Okay. I was just going to go there. I was just saying any updates on any guys.
That's the only kind of injury update I have. Aiden Williams has a brace on his knee, and
saw the picture, yeah. And still McCollum hasn't returned yet either.
McCollum was limited to that.
Oh, okay.
In uniform, in pads, but limited.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Again, I think because of what I saw in that preseason opener, I'm not going to say. Again, I don't want to overstate this, but he's somebody that I think definitely needs to be there as insurance at center for this football team. So, yeah, glad that he's back in at least a limited capacity right now. All right, anything else that stood out before we get to some comments from guys?
We had a fight. The fight was started by
yes,
Steelers punter Cameron Johnson.
Yeah, I love it.
Which I just
gotta love it. Mm-hmm.
Somebody, I didn't see what happened. I assume somebody too close to his plant foot. He got in somebody's face. there was a little bit of shoving, and then Connor. I don't know who it was, but Connor Hayward just decked him, and then the pushing and shoving started. You gotta love it when your punter's the one guy that's like, yeah, we're gonna start.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm telling. He's
a punter, but he's also an Aussie. He is an Aussie.
Yeah, first and foremost.
That guy scares me more than almost any other player on the team. Like, I am more afraid of Cameron Johnson than I am of Cameron Hayward.
Okay. All right. I don't have any interactions really based off with Cam Johnson. Or then we walked by each other the Friday Night Lights practice, and I can't disagree with you. He gives me as close to Daniel Sepulveda vibes as I've had for any punter.
Yeah. He's a tough guy, no question.
All right. So other than the practice, obviously, you hear from Mike Tomlin, you hear from Andy Weidl. Anything to take away from what they had to say in your mind?
Tomlin said basically all the starters that did not practice in the first preseason game will also not practice the second preseason game. That's a change from last year when the second preseason game was kind of the big everybody dressed game. But traditionally, it's been the third. Last year was sort of the exception. Now they're going back to the third. So no Aaron Rodgers, no TJ Watt, no Alex Highsmith, no Cam Hayward, no Chris Boswell, no Patrick Queen, no Deshaun Elliott, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, yada, yada, yada. He didn't rule anybody out with an injury. But obviously, I think pretty sure we're not seeing guys that were in knee braces or couldn't even get in a uniform today. Like a guy like Will Howard isn't going to practice or isn't going to play. So, you kind of have a good idea of who's in and who's out, but he isn't officially. If they're not healthy enough to practice today, I don't know how they're going to play in a preseason game in 2 days. So I think you can pretty much rule that whole crowd out. But Tomlin did not officially.
Okay. Well, you answered another part of my thing there, because I was going back and looking at, and I realized last year that game 2, we saw both Fields and Russell Wilson play in that game, and a lot of the ones were playing in that game. And but I guess I didn't go back further than that. So the expectation is then we will see a lot of ones, maybe besides Aaron Rodgers in that third one.
Mike Tomlin didn't rule it out. That Aaron Rodgers will play. He kind of left it up in the air. Said he hasn't decided yet. It wouldn't shock me if Aaron goes out there and gets a series or two, one drive. That really wouldn't surprise me. It also wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't. It doesn't sound like he really wants to. Talked to PQ today and see if he, get his thoughts on it. He was like, "They want me to play, I'll go play." But I'm not itching for it. That's what he said.
Okay, so, I was kind of wondering what the general consensus was outside of Aaron.
Yeah. So I think Pat talked about it too, but I wasn't in that scrum. Chris Ward was talking to him, but that'll be a story Chris is actually working on right now up on the site about the vets and preseason compared to the joint practice. But everybody was out there today except for the injured guys and Hayward and Boswell.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we'll see on the ones for game 3, not game 2. Anything else from Tomlin, or was that really the only thing to pull from that?
Not much else, really. I mean, not particularly newsy stuff from Tomlin. Good talks with Andy Weidl. Talked a lot about the offensive line. Talked about the defense and how they felt like they needed to add toughness at all levels. And, kind of said that's why you see not just Jalen Ramsey, but Thornhill and Chuck Clark and Echols and Malik Harrison. And there's a theme there pretty clearly. Harmon and Black and Sawyer, and pretty much you draw outside of maybe Slay. If you draw the scouting report for pretty much everyone they acquired on defense this offseason, toughness is going to be in there somewhere. And I'm not sure. I think we talked a lot about them wanting to be better against the run and physicality, but I'm not sure I've ever drawn it out exactly that way, the way Andy did today, where it's like, here's what we were looking for, guys. And they got it, a whole bunch of it.
Yeah, obviously me not being in there and just going based off the quotes that I see on the timeline from you and your peers that were covering it. But I don't know. Like there was just something about reading through him. I was like, wow. The way he's calling players out by name and just going through it, just like the Rolodex, obviously. And I don't know. I was pretty impressed just by the way that it was coming off from him. Singled out guys like Roman Wilson. You mentioned the defensive rookies that were brought up as well by name. And you mentioned the offensive line. And I think that we can work a question in here about that because Mike asked, obviously, a lot of focus on the 2 tackles. Sam Marlowe's a known commodity and feel pretty good about Zach Frazier. But the guy that we haven't talked a lot about this year up to this point is Mason McCormick. What have you thought so far of his camp? And anything, have you seen a year 1 to year 2 leap, or where are we at with him?
Sorry, having some technical difficulties with the
That's fine. I actually didn't have this tab open. I switched tabs for a second, so I had no clue what was even going on there.
We're going to have to go with that for now. Yeah, I mean, I think McCormick's been good. This was a tough test. I mean, you've got Villa and Cansey are really good defensive tackles. And they're going to play. I'm not sure Villa is, but Cansey will play. Evans, I think Todd Bowles only named 3 guys that aren't going to play. It was Villa, Evans, and I forget who the third guy was.
Levante David.
Okay, yeah, David. There you go. And so you'll get Cansey against McCormick, and I think that's a good matchup to watch. He has had some trouble with those sort of quicker, twitchier, disruptor-type defensive tackles. I think he does really well when it's just power and toughness. I think the speed of some defenders is like the one area that he probably needs to work on. So that'll be a really good matchup for him. But I think he's been very solid throughout training camp. I have not noticed him in a good way.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, obviously, like to ask about the year 1 to year 2 leap, I think right now it's hard to say, right? Like, I mean, I guess you could speak to where he's at in the setting, but until you see it in game action, especially Mason looked good really early in the season and even middle portion of the season. Really on the back end, I would say probably that like Thursday night game against Cleveland to the end of the season where I thought it became pretty noticeable that he was hitting a wall, and not just exclusive to him. So good stuff there. Was there? I know I parlayed out of Andy Weidl to get to that. But was there anything else from Weidl that you didn't touch on?
And then I feel like we got to talk about. There's a couple other things I might write, but talked a little bit about the 2026 quarterback class, and did sort of acknowledge that they feel like it looks like it's deep right now. But he says, we gotta wait and see who comes out.
Gotcha. Okay. I like this one. This isn't necessarily something for related to today's joint practice or anything like that. But Randy asked me, how do I prepare or approach for an episode differently when you're the co-host as opposed to somebody else? Do you treat Alan the same as any other co-host, or is everyone basically the same? Yeah, I feel like I pride myself on being versatile, Swiss Army knife, if you will, and understanding the role that I'm in. Like if it's today, right, where it's like your boots on the ground at a practice, my job, if you will, on here to me is to ask you questions, get information about what was going on there that same day. It's not really for me to give an opinion. What would I possibly have an opinion on in that setting? So I don't know. Yeah, for me, it changes, I guess, on an episode to episode basis, but I kind of pride myself on it being that way. This is totally different, I feel like, from when I do around the 412 with Tyler, where it's just basically two fans as opposed to the fan and the journalist.
You're like the fan and the host, which is why you're so good at this, because there's no one else that can do that. You ask me questions and also provide a unique perspective that I think is very valuable. You're like the Brandin Echols of this podcast. To go back to the beginning of this episode, maybe the Jalen Ramsey of this podcast. Actually,
okay, thank you. Yes.
Better.
I love Brandin Echols, but yeah, that's
a better.
That makes me feel much better.
The Jalen Ramsey of this podcast. You can do
I
anything.
appreciate it.
I'll tell you. This question was directed at you, and I love that for you. Also, I'll answer it in that I don't prepare for this show at all, no matter what, except when you're not here. That's the only time that I do prepare for this show. Every other time, I just turn it on and we go. I prepare for morning rush because I don't really want to bounce things off. So I have to know like some idea of what I'm going to say. And when you're not here, I do. But when it's me and you, I literally just turn the camera on and start talking. I zero preparation.
Okay, so you, for more reasons than one, are just very thankful for me being the guy that's steering the ship, if you will. I'm running point. Jalen Ramsey was the person that we said here, but maybe it'd be better to use a basketball term here that I'm running the point. No, but I appreciate that, Randy. I think Brooklyn shares the sentiment from me about the fans being able to get access to the joint practice. She said, heard you say it was hard to watch, had to choose what you wanted to see. So I'm assuming that'd be an issue for fans to watch. Yeah, to the point where not even just watching, couldn't even follow along on your Twitter timeline as normal. So, yeah, I guess this is what Alan was able to tell us is probably as much as you're going to be able to get. Going through what else do we have here? P-Town with a question here. Oh, you know what? He said specifically wants this one for Morning Rush. I'm not even going to touch this. If somebody specifically says they want it for Morning Rush, I'll give you a little bit of a heads up. He said you don't prepare for this. You prepare for the morning rushes. He wants to know why the NFL is set to 53 players and why it's 47 for a game day.
Oh, maybe we'll save that for 53-man cutdown day.
That's good.
Man. All right, that's a good question.
Tom here said, based off what you saw in preseason game 1, is there anything in your mind that has changed to this point or anything that you need to see in preseason game 2?
I'm not going to overreact to anything that happens in one preseason game. I'll let the fans do that. I will say there's lots of things I want to see that I didn't see. I want to see better run blocking. I want to see more explosiveness from Caleb Johnson. I want to see more impact from Derek Harmon, Jack Sawyer. I'd like to see a 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
And because I don't think they've been very good at those throughout camp.
Yeah.
I can't really remember when the offense sort of soundly won. Maybe there was like a 50-50 one, but I don't think there's been a single 2-minute drill the offense has sort of soundly won, despite the fact that I think they've thrown the ball better this year than they have last year. I just think that's like one of the last, like that's an all-timing rhythm sort of thing, and it probably takes the longest to be on the same page in that area. So I'd like to see some of that.
Are you talking about that when you say that about the 2-minute drill, like within any group, like have all the groups struggled, or like specifically like?
Yeah, I mean, there may have been like a day the ones won and the twos lost. You know, like they may have split a couple. I don't remember any like dominant offensive performances in the 2-minute drill.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, for me, because I mentioned this, like, I'm very encouraged as much as you can be from a preseason game. Like Alan said, I mean, even from the fan perspective, I try not to overreact, but I'm not great at doing that at times. But what I will say is, for me, I just said, like, I want to see things stacked from that first preseason game. I thought, two guys that are going to have, a big target on them are going to be these 2 tackles. And if they can, have a performance like they did in the first preseason game, again in the second one, and just continuing to stack those performances, I think there's going to be a lot of confidence that's built through doing that. In this secondary, I know that you've talked them up all training camp, but they were awesome in the first. Like everything that happened basically in that first game, with the exception of the second and third offensive line groups run blocking, and what you mentioned, maybe a little bit more splash maybe from the rookies. Those are the 2 things I'd like to see that we didn't see in the first game.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it.
Okay. Was there anything else here that I felt like we had to answer today? No, I don't. Oh, wait. Yeah, there was one from Biz here, and this is something maybe to ask if you haven't gotten this answer already. Odd question. I'm not sure you either would know, but do our edge rushers do any ankle mobility workouts, or is that something that is heavily emphasized during training camp practices? I think that this is based off, I don't know if you saw the picture, that still shot of Ravens edge rusher Mike Green man, it looks like he's like snapping his ankle going around the edge. And I've seen some shots in the past where like I'm like, oh my goodness, like looking at like Nick Herbig going around the edge. But have you ever asked them specifically about like doing different types of training or anything for that?
I've talked to guys, and I think Herbig was one of them. I know Highsmith was sort of early in there. I think I talked to Highsmith about this at the combine, if I remember correctly, about you have to be able to bend to get around the edge at the NFL level and what that does to a tackle. And guys really do work on that. I don't know how much at the ankles, though. I feel like it's more about like your core, honestly, because that guy's leaning on you, and as you're coming around, like you've really got to be able to have the strength to hold yourself up at that weird low angle that they're coming around the bend at. I'll ask somebody. I'll ask Smitty. He's pretty good about stuff like that.
Well, I just said I don't know, so.
other Smitty.
Yeah. No, I got. Yeah.
I'll ask 56 what he thinks about that, if he does anything specifically for his ankles. But from my just sort of first thought about that is, yes, that puts a lot of strain on the ankle, but I think the actual strength building is more core than leg workouts. It's interesting because like edge rushers don't have big lower leg muscles. Like you would like TJ Watt is a giant guy, but you look at like his legs, they're not like exceptionally large for an NFL player from from the waist down. Edge rushers are all upper body. So now James Harrison, there's always exceptions, but I would think it's probably more core strength than anything.
Gotcha. All right. Well, as we got some breaking news,
flexibility. I think that's
absolutely.
probably more than strength. Just being able to bend is probably a bigger thing.
We got some breaking news as we close out the show here. Isaiah Bond, the receiver out of Texas, who went undrafted, obviously the off-field issues, is heading to the Cleveland Browns, which kind of feels fitting, to be honest with you, all the way around.
That's just because Texas, burnt orange, Cleveland. That's the only reason you're saying that's fitting, Smitty?
Yeah, no other reason whatsoever. But hey,
I'm glad people can stop asking me if he signed with the Steelers based on nonsense Facebook accounts that kept posting that for some reason for 3 months.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. Not the only thing that happened with the Cleveland Browns. And
no charges for Quinshawn Judkins today.
Yeah. So pretty wild day.
Well,
and I heard
they were below par than in players facing charges, so they had to add one.
Yeah, my goodness. All right, well, we'll see what comes of that. But anyways, Alan, good stuff as always. Until tomorrow, which is already Friday. Tell the people where they can find you.
Hey, Saunders, _PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now site's account. SteelersNow.com. Go there and read the words so I can get paid. Sign up for SN Plus and get members-only access to the best content from me, DB, the rest of the SNL team. Our subs-only live stream, which is coming up, I don't know, at some point this month. And ad-free reading experience at SteelersNow.com, which is way, way better. And, of course, anyone can subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. That's free. Really helps us grow this channel and spread this podcast to a bigger and bigger audience, which you guys have been doing.
Yes. Yep. Currently sitting at 16,400. And again, only one player comes to mind for me. The bus, Jerome Bettis, number 36.
Yeah. Yeah, what a bad number that he made iconic. Not a good number, objectively. Can I think of an old 36? I feel like there's got to be one, but I'm really struggling.
Oh, wow. There was a really good player, actually, that wore it, but later switched to a different number. So they wore this for one season, left to go serve in the military, and came back, and then had the number
was that what Rocky Blyer wore before 20?
No, somebody else.
Oh, geez.
Linebacker.
I don't have that one. Wait, it's got to
Andy
be
Russell.
Andy Russell was 36 before, and then he was 34. Was Bill Dudley 30? No, he was 32 or 34. Nah, he's not 36.
Yeah, no, I don't even recognize any of these other names, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I got nothing. Over.
Yeah.
Let us know if you can come up with another Steelers 36.
Yeah, if by some miracle that you can. Anyways, as Alan said, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You will find us there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok. You can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders, and myself. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.